Hello everyone, and welcome to D&D Horror Stories with D&D Doge. In today's video, we have a story about a dungeon master that accuses a player of performing SA in a game of Dungeons & Dragons just for using a spell. A story about a DM taking away a player's class feature for something the player had no say in, and much more. But before we get into those, it's kitty time.
Remember to like, comment and subscribe. Yay, a string.
Well said, Ziggy. I'm sure they will do that. But with that dose of kittium, I think we are ready for some D&D horror stories. Dungeon Master accuses me of trying to SA an NPC. By Reddit user Pure Cauliflower 635. I play with a group of 5, including myself, and we all get along well together and are friends. One day, we needed a new campaign, and a new person joined our group to Dungeon Master a homebrew campaign for us. The first session went fine, but at the second session, things went south. In the campaign, we had to traverse the homebrew world to go to 8 different areas to obtain 8 different clues to the BBEG's lair, all while being chased by their minions. The place we had to go to was a Tudor-like city, and the clue was at a prestigious college. When we got there, one player met an NPC called Evie, and immediately became friendly to her. The Dungeon Master informed us that we could have long-lasting, platonic, and romantic relationships in the campaign, who we could periodically visit. The Dungeon Master asked the player if they wanted to pursue a romantic relationship with Evie, and she said yes. They went on a date, and everybody thought it was really cute. Evie was a vain aristocrat who only really cared for money, and the day after the date, her and the player met up, and Evie found out that the player's character was extremely poor, so immediately broke up with her. Later, to obtain the clue, I had to distract Evie while the others did their part in getting it. I thought it would be funny to flirt with her, since the player was still a bit angry that they never got to be in a relationship with her, and it would make her mad. I rolled really low on charisma, and Evie found me really annoying and stole all of my gold pieces. By now, some time had passed, and our party had obtained the clue, and we were ready to escape. And to get back at her, I cast Inflict Wounds on Evie. Inflict Wounds has a range of touch, so I stated that I just put my hand on Evie to cast the spell. I also rolled extremely low and did basically no damage, so I just escaped with the party. A bit later, someone walked up to our table, as we usually play inside of a store, and asked how it was going. Immediately, the Dungeon Master pointed to me and said, "He tried to SA someone in the game." I became confused and asked what she was talking about, and the Dungeon Master said, "You tried to hurt someone by touching them, so you SA'd them." I quickly tried to defend myself against the person who had walked up, but they just gave me a dirty look and walked away. I asked the Dungeon Master why they made me look like a creep in front of someone, to which she said, "Don't do it, and I won't say it." At the end of the session, she also asked me to stay behind and scolded me over what I did. Edit. Not sure if I made this clear or not, but when I flirted with Evie, I was not attempting to legitimately romance her, and it was just a joke to distract her and to make the other player mad. I also made this clear at the table. Well, that certainly was an overreaction from the Dungeon Master. OP was just casting a spell that had a touch component. It's not like OP was trying to remove any clothing or touch certain areas. But for some reason, the DM took it as such. I think that says more about the DM's imagination than OP's. I can only imagine the shock and embarrassment of having the DM saying that to a complete stranger. If I were OP, I would talk to the DM about why what they did wasn't okay, and her saying that it was SA in front of someone no one knew made OP feel extremely uncomfortable, And if the DM doesn't apologize and admit that they overreacted, then I would talk to the rest of the group about not playing in this new DM's game. And speaking of the other players, why didn't any of them stand up for OP after that? Perhaps they were just as in shock as OP was. But yeah, that accusation is completely unfounded. Let's move on. My character lost a class feature in a Fae deal he didn't make. By Reddit user, 3 is better than 5. Me and my friend group are 25-ish sessions into our campaign, playing fortnightly, being run by a new-time DM for our group. But he's still been a pretty good DM, all things considered, and he's actually given me some genuinely good advice for me as a returning, but still inexperienced DM after several years. The issue comes with our most recent sessions. We had a session where we fought against what we later found out to be a level 20 fighter with vampirism, and we apparently got extremely close to finishing the fighter off. But ultimately, it almost ended with a total TPK, with only me and the cleric left standing in the final moments of the fight. Now, I'd like to preface this by saying this was a completely avoidable fight, and my barbarian had actually confessed his love for her before it happened, trying to woo her so he could keep the sword she was after. But she got increasingly annoyed, so my barbarian relented and gave the weapon over. As she was leaving, another player of ours, the rogue, used telepathic speech to threaten her, and we ultimately ended up fighting her. My barbarian then spent the first few rounds trying to de-escalate, but she said someone was going to die today. So my character, being a zealot barbarian, offered his life for the parties, but the fighter refused and said that everyone will die. This led to the almost total TPK, but at the very end, our cleric called upon a Fae she was in contact with to save us as a last resort, and she made a deal to save the party, and instantly knocked out me and the cleric. What we found out at the beginning of the next session is that each of our characters had a class feature taken from us. I don't know what the others lost, but my character awoke to having his danger sense lost, which has honestly not made me feel great. Some characters got around it as they had gods or patrons to protect them, but not me or the druid. We spoke to him after the session, and I tried to bring up that I thought it was unfair, but he justified it by saying that the cleric said she spoke on behalf of the party, and we had never explicitly stated against that, so he lost things as well. And the reason for the TPK is that he was keeping track of how pissed off she was getting, and she was already annoyed because my character was stalling for the sword, and she had been told that we had killed a vampire. The thing that sucks even more about this is that deals made with Fae stay after death of either party in my DM's game, as my character actually came from the Feywild and lost several things in deals with Fae. So it's very likely that I'm just not going to have danger sense anymore. Realistically, it's just advantage on dex saves, so the game can go on, but this just feels like such a kick in the ass. What I'd like to know is, am I overreacting? Is this normal? Is this justified? Or am I right for being annoyed? Right for being disappointed that I've lost a class feature simply for never having said no to a situation my character literally would not have known would come up? Well, that sucks. Personally, I would be a bit peeved about the permanent debuff, especially since OP and his character had no say in the deal. If anything, I kinda think the DM took the cheap way out of this by doing the debuff thing to anyone but the cleric. Heck, this could have been a good hook for a side quest where the Fae made the deal for the party to go on some sort of quest for them. In my opinion, I think permanent debuffs in games like D&D kinda take the fun out of it. Sure, I'm all for temporary ones, like lower max HP until a long rest type of thing. but taking a class feature away with no way of getting it back is a bit much in my opinion. Though, what do you all think on this one? Is OP right to be a bit peeved? Or did the DM do the right thing here? I would love to know your opinions. But with that said, let's move on to the next post. My boyfriend is a bit of a problem player, needing advice, as I'm the DM. By Reddit user, Extra Cozy Dog Dog. I'm a dungeon master for a group of 5 players, and my boyfriend is one of those players. All the players are first-timers, so it's been such a fun time. However, an issue recently has come up where my boyfriend, who I think agreed to play just to make me happy, is becoming a bit of a problem player. He kind of approaches the game like a video game instead of a tabletop RPG, which is forgivable because he doesn't have any experience. The issue is, he's usually quiet at the table, but when he does speak, it's almost always something crazy that simply doesn't make sense, so his character has to suffer consequences that he walked right into. For example, beating up innocent servants that I made obviously innocent, wanting to talk directly to the evil big baddie when the whole party was ready to leave, trying to flirt with a girl that another player already had a thing with by throwing a coin on the table, and then getting mad when the girl was pissed off. When his character suffers the consequences, he's starting to get genuinely mad and thinks I'm being intentionally hard on him in game. I know I'm not doing that, and I don't want to kick him out of the game, but a couple of the players legitimately saw us fight after our last session, and I can't let this game make that happen again. I'm not sure if it's a DM problem or a player problem. Any advice? Edit/update. We've talked. TLDR, he admitted to letting his role-playing start to overlap with actual emotions, and I admitted that I could have given his character more options and opportunities to avoid the outcomes. The previous fight happened because he let himself get wrapped up in the game and then got embarrassed by how much it affected him. All is good now, and we have plans in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. Some of the advice I got from here was super helpful. All is good now. There's more details, of course, but that's the update for Reddit. Well, this story just goes to show that, again, whenever problems arise in any tabletop RPG like Dungeons & Dragons, the first thing you should do is talk about it. It sounded like OP's boyfriend didn't expect to get so attached to his character and the events in game, and started to develop a bit of character bleed. Luckily, OP didn't waste any time in talking to him about it after they had a fight, and figured things out that they could do that would work for the both of them. So here is hoping that they have plenty of fun games in the future, but without the out-of-game drama. On to the next post. Player will not write down their backstory. Expects me to know it from over weeks of random texts. By Reddit user, Big Dumb Bab. A rant. Not really looking for advice. I know I should talk to him, but I'm mad. I'm DMing, and my buddy Mike has a real passion to play. He's a lot of fun, and I like that his girlfriend is into it also. But they're also my worst players. His girlfriend can't remember and will not write down any spells, even Fireball, which she casts almost every round. Just write down the damage dice. The spell attack doesn't change every time you roll. As for Mike, he's never played a spellcaster, because then he would have to read a little more. He doesn't play them because then he would have to know his spells. This hesitation to read also spreads over to not wanting to write down anything. I've got 2 other players, very eager, and have written brief backstories. I want to incorporate them into the game and world, and I've done almost 0 world building in hopes that we could fill it out together. Mike also wants to contribute. We've talked a bit about his character. We've shared some text, but he will not write me a summary. That is so lame, and honestly disrespectful because of all the work I put in this. I have 2 journals of notes and maps, multiple NPC character sheets, all the minis, battle maps, and blank character sheets come from me, and I usually bring the snacks. Whatever, that's all fine, but it's part of the game, and refusing to write a backstory, saying that he's given me more backstory than anyone, and that I need to look up the texts. F that. Here's where I am. F his backstory. What he has so far isn't that impressive. At some point, as a kid, an adult, when, I don't know, a green dragon attacked his town. Though, why would it do that? He then left and joined the Merry Men, a bunch of Robin Hood types. Who are they? How long was he with them? Were they the give to the poor types, or cutthroats? There's also a legend of a super awesome short bow, because rogues can't use real bows like he's playing. Though, what are its powers? This short bow is in the village, and it's super cool and awesome. But then, somehow, he ended up on the other side of the world, and it's important to him that his homeland not be close by from where the story has been happening so far. He also met his girlfriend's character at some point, and her character has a dad that's something missing. I don't know or care if they can't write it down. I don't need all the details, and I'm very irritated by his response. So F it. Anything else? I don't care. His character's family, dead. He's an orphan now. That legendary bow? Lost to history. The Merry Men gang? In prison far away. The dragon that raised his town for the evils, and the town that is so far away from where we are that we'll never encounter or hear about it ever again. Well, that sure was a rant, but I can see where OP is coming from. He wants to build the story around the characters, and it's kinda hard to do that when there is nothing to really work with. Sure, the rogue player did give little tidbits here and there, but never explained anything to OP. And to just tell OP to just go through old texts that he sent to OP in order to get said backstory, when OP asked him to just write a few pages explaining things so OP can better insert his character into the story, is a bit of a slap in the face. Heck, it doesn't even need to be that detailed. And if the player thinks of something else that he would like to add to the character's past later on, that is okay too. I mean, I have done this a few times for my DM, and she always appreciates it and will include it in some way down the line. And as far as the rogue's girlfriend not remembering what to roll for Fireball, especially when she uses it constantly, I mean, sure, she's new, but you gotta write stuff down, especially if you're a spellcaster that chooses spells after a long rest. Plus, her not writing stuff down just tells me that she probably isn't keeping track of spell slots. Now, I know OP said that they weren't looking for advice, but I'm still going to say that it would be a good idea to pull these players aside and let them know the issues that OP is having with them. I mean, how are they going to change unless they are told what they are doing wrong? Anyway, hopefully OP got some frustration out by writing out that post, and eventually was able to get more fleshed out backstories from both players, and actually got them to start writing stuff down to keep track of. But that is all I have for you today. As always, I appreciate all of you, especially if you like, comment, and subscribe. And may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.